I need to back up just a little bit. I told you I'm bad at English. Let me find out where I'm supposed to be here. We're in Job chapter 21. And I think I said, if you look at verse 11 to 15, and of course it's about the wicked, and Job is, he's given them an argument that the wicked don't always get it in the neck right away. They get it eventually. But we're reading down through there, and I said in verse 15 that this is Job talking. Well, it is Job talking, but he's still speaking with the mouth of the that the mouth of the wicked are talking. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Look at verse 14. Therefore they say unto God, depart from us, for we desire not the knowledge of thy ways. And then the continuation of it is, what is the Almighty that we should serve him, and what profit should we have if we pray unto him? And he's just saying there that if no judgment falls on them, then they really don't have any fear of God, and therefore they don't want to call on him. They don't even think they need him. And you can't look at every situation, every person in this world and figure out what God is doing. You just can't. It's just like one person, man, he'll go after them and he'll just dog them. I mean, he'll dog them till they get saved. Other people, man, it's almost like he just doesn't even see that they're there. And that's where God's looking on the heart of things, and that could be the nicest individual you've ever met in your life, give you the shirt off his back, blah, 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 but God sees down inside there. And if he sees a man like Esau, I mean, he doesn't have to give him a witness. He doesn't have to. And some people, they've already made up their mind. In their heart, they're done. So, anyway, we left off in verse 16. And from verse 16 to verse 26, Job's agreeing with his friends that the wicked get, I say friends in quotations, he's agreeing with his friends that the wicked, they get it in the neck, but that appearances are deceiving. Sometimes it's not always the way you think it is. Let me ask you this. Somebody gets born again in Spring Valley, okay? They're a decent individual, basically hardworking. What kind of life do you think they'll have? I mean, if nothing out of the ordinary happens, they don't, get hit by a bus or anything. God blesses them, they have a pretty good life, wouldn't they? I mean, they would know what it is to have good times, good fellowship, good people around them. I'm talking about church going. Now tell me about one that's born in India. And this is not a professional. This is, a day worker. This is just somebody that just gets out there and does labor. And he's living in a city that's got, 1 million people around him that he barely move. You think he'll have the same quality of life? Now, just saved as you and I. But what may look like the judgment of God on him is really not, is it? And he may never enjoy life like you and I do. He may not enjoy any of it actually. Some people, it's just a trial to just live. It really is. We're really blessed in this country in that we have a lot. You got grocery stores full of food, although that might be changing. I don't know if y'all been keeping up with the news, but I think the Russians are trying to starve us to death. They keep hacking into things, and here beef could get hard to find, and chicken already is. Something about the chickens. I can't remember what that was now. But chicken and beef. Huh? COVID? The chickens got COVID. I don't know. Anyway, we have no clue what's going to happen. It's only been, Biden's only been president for, 6 months. not even a full 6 months. And man, he has just drugged this economy down to the ground, man. I think we got some interesting times ahead. All right, let's look at verse 16. We'll read down to verse 21 and make some comments. It says, lo, their good is not in their hand. Now, if somebody wants to figure out the first verse there, 16, and you can go back and read 15, it won't help you, I don't think. And it says, lo, their good is not in their hand. The counsel of the wicked is far from me. How oft is the candle of the wicked put out? How oft cometh their destruction upon them? God distributeth sorrows in his anger. They are as stubble before the wind, and as chaff that the storm carrieth away. God layeth up his iniquity for his children. Now notice it, God layeth up his iniquity for his children. He rewardeth him. He shall know it. His eyes shall see his destruction. He shall drink of the wrath of the Almighty. For what pleasure hath he in his house after him, when the number of his months is cut off in the midst? Remember, it's all about talking about the wicked. And even though people live and die under all kinds of circumstances, we're going to be talking about the wicked here in the first part, and then the second part, I think we're just talking about people in general and how they live and die. And he says there in verse 17, how oft is the candle of the wicked put out? Now this is going to be, we're going to be able to apply this to the Antichrist again. And like Norma Jean Baker, you know who that is, a.k.a. Marilyn Monroe. The Antichrist is just a candle in the wind. And he'll have life and light, or at least a little light, until God says, that's the end of you. You notice he mentions there a candle, and then he talks about the wind in verse 18. That's how I came up with that. It just hit me. Marilyn Monroe, okay? Now, that was before my time. She pretty much off the scene. I was just a little kid, I think. But, she committed adultery with a sitting president as well as his brother, Bobby. Both of them are assassinated, shot in the head, and Marilyn dies of an overdose. Why would you want to glorify anybody like that in song? People do, crazy, isn't it? They exalt the worst people. I don't care if she was beautiful. That's got nothing to do. Huh? That's right. I'll say beauty's only skin deep, but ugly goes clear to the bone, or something like that. A woman can be extremely beautiful in 5 minutes with her, and man, she just turns ugly on you. It all depends about what's inside, and it's true of the man too. But he says there the wicked are like chaff. Now, what that is, it's the worthless, weightless hulls that surround grains. And how they get those hulls off there is they winnowing. And where they throw the grain up in the air, and you have to have at least a breeze going that day. Usually it's an area where there's a good breeze or a good wind or a storm. But you throw that grain up in the air, and that grain has weight to it. And we're likened to the grain. We've got substance. And the grain falls to the ground, and that husk or that chaff just blows away with the wind. And he's likening the wicked to this chaff. Look at Jeremiah 23:28. I like this verse. This should encourage you in how the Lord feels about you versus the wicked. In Jeremiah 23:28, the prophet that hath a dream, let him tell a dream. And he that hath my word, let him speak my word faithfully. What is the chaff to the wheat, saith the Lord? That's a good comparison. What is the chaff to the wheat? Well, the wheat has weight. It has value. It helps other people. It sustains people. The chaff is just worthless, but it almost looks like the wheat because it's the hull of the wheat. And what you have in this world is chaff and wheat. You have those that are saved and are God's fruit, and then you have the hulls. You have people that they look like the wheat, but If you put them to the test, the wind blows them away. And in fact, judgment will take them away. Look at Matthew chapter 3, verse 10 or verse 12. Matthew 3:12. Whose fan is in his hand, and he will thoroughly purge his floor and gather his wheat into the garner, but he will burn up the chaff with unquenchable fire. And there's him separating that thing. And he talks about dropping a sickle in there and reaping. I mean, getting the wheat out of there. There's a post-tribulation rapture. And it's God getting the wheat that he can out of there before the judgment falls. Because he's going to do something that's going to cause those plants to be damaged. He's going to bring judgment on the earth. So he's getting his wheat out of there. But he's getting ready to burn the chaff. Turn to Daniel 2:35. Daniel 2:35. It says, then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Now that's Nebuchadnezzar's image in Daniel 2. And that image represents the kingdoms of this world. Starting with Nebuchadnezzar and moving on down to the Medes and the Persians, and then Greece, and then Rome's in there somewhere. I think I've got the order right. But when he comes back, he smashes into those kingdoms. Now, this isn't wheat, this is metals. Except for the clay, these are heavy metals. And he's literally going to grind them to powder that the wind will blow them away. That's quite a judgment. And you know that because of Matthew 21:44. Whosoever shall fall on this stone shall be broken, but on whosoever it shall fall, it will grind him to powder. A lot of verses in the Bible that aren't good for Sunday church. Encouraging folks. But you know what? Some folks just need to be shaken, especially in America. It always takes a 9/11 or something like that for everybody to take a look up and realize they should be in church. They should know their Creator. They should know where they're going to spend eternity. And it takes just almost a cataclysmic event to get them in there. One of these days, man, I'm telling you. And even then, what's surprising is that near the end of the tribulation, they're given a half hour to repent, and there's just no repentance. That's crazy to me. And that's just, some people really will bow their neck or shake their fist at God, and they really think they're somebody. And they're just going to find out just who they are. They are chaff to him. Whew. They don't realize that. He mentions there, verse 18, they are stubble before the wind and chaff that the storm carrieth away. That's why I mentioned a storm. There is a storm coming. Now, the Advent, when Jesus Christ returns, you could definitely say that's a storm. But there's one where, remember, the one thing, I'll tell you what wheat hates the most, or even the tares that are in the wheat field, what they would hate the most, and that's hail, right? I remember a hailstorm that hit Xenia, and I was in church. My family wasn't there because I was going to fly to Florida that night to help Robbie drive back a bunch of furniture and stuff. And this hailstorm hit, man, it was momentous. I mean, they were like baseball-size hail. And we had a metal roof, and those of you knew that. And it sounded like we got in the center hallway between the offices and the restrooms and all that stuff. We stayed right there in the middle hallway, and man, it sounded like a war going on outside. And that banging and slamming, it was just so, you couldn't hear yourself hardly even thinking. I couldn't hardly hear what was being said to me. And you didn't dare walk outside. We opened the door and we went, and they're looking at their cars going, but it was shredding the trees. And the one thing I remember is I thought, oh, it's destroyed my place. My home's destroyed. And when I was driving out of there, the car was all dented up. I didn't care about it. Broke the windshield. But I looked and there was like 3 inches of leaves covering the roads, like a carpet, where it had shredded all the trees down through there, those elms and whatever, maples. It had just shredded them. And they were just like 3 inches of carpet. It's like I was driving on carpet. It was really weird. And I'm just going home and thought, what am I going to do? Lord, what am I going to do? How bad? I get to my house and it's dry. Oh, I not only didn't get any hail, I didn't even get any rain. And I'm 2 miles away down the road in Xenia, and it literally tore that place to pieces. I've seen what just baseball-size hail can do to trees and grass and whatever. But now imagine that you've got Revelation 16:21, and there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent. Now I have been told 16 to 18 pounds. So a good heavy bowling ball. Okay, and somebody can look that up and confirm that a talent's about 16 to 18 pounds. You get different numbers, but it's heavy. And it says, there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent, and men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail, for the plague thereof was exceeding great. You're talking about something go right through your house. I mean, you might survive in the basement, but you imagine something just going right through your ceiling, just crushing everything, and these things just coming down, pounding your house, your field, your car. Oh. Look like you've been to a crusher after a few of these things hit it. Everything just destroyed. Everything. That storm's coming. Now, I think that thing is just, not too long from the Advent. Verse 19, it says, God layeth up his iniquity for his children, he rewardeth him, and he shall know it. And that's just another verse telling you that the wicked store up wrath. You don't always see it. Now, in the instance here, they're going to see it. But you and I know that in this world, the wicked may not see a day of judgment here. Not much of one. Am I coming through okay? I keep hearing a noise. Rachel? Okay. Some type of interference. It's a hailstorm, yeah. Huh? No. Well, I forgot my phone, so I can't. If I'm getting one, it's a long. Romans 2:5-6, and we've quoted this quote several times. It says, "But after thy hardness and impenitent heart treasureth up unto thyself wrath against the day of wrath and revelation of the righteous judgment of God, who will render to every man according to his deeds." So, if they don't get it in this lifetime, they'll get it in the next, but the Antichrist is going to get it. That's the whole point of this. He's going to get it. He mentions there, and by the way, I want to say something. Job's bringing up a phenomenon. I guess that's a word I can use. A phenomenon that you observe and you're like, how can that be? Sometimes God will not do anything against the wicked. He just won't put his hand on them. Whether they're storing up wrath or for another, we talked about the 4 or 5 reasons why God would not do that. He'll let him build something and then take it from him and then give it to his children. Okay? But the king that reigned the longest, whether it be Judah or Israel, in fact, he was from Judah, was Manasseh. He reigned 55 years, and he is the worst king that there was. He is so bad that because of what he did, God took Judah into captivity, but not during the days of Manasseh. In 2 Kings 24:3, it says, "Surely at the commandment of the Lord came this upon Judah to remove them out of his sight for the sins of Manasseh according to all that he did. This guy was so bad, he not only went after the golden calves, he not only worshiped images, he killed more innocents in the land than any other king ever did. He offered their sons and daughters to Moloch, burned them in the fire. This was, you think this paganism would be in the deep, dark of South America, someplace in the jungle, where they'd be offering their children to the crocodile or something, But they were offering the children to the fire there, and God forbid that thing. He didn't want that at all. So Manasseh is the most evil one, and yet God let him reign. Can you imagine Obama for 55 years? Or Biden? That'd be like a weekend at Bernie's. They'd be standing him up, And I think I saw half a weekend at Bernie's, so please don't judge me. But God allowed these people to go along their way and didn't do anything to stop them. And that's his business. But boy, you sure hope it ain't you that's under that. We're starting to get the idea of what it's like, though, aren't we? To have a pathetic leader, to have someone that doesn't have any of the values that you have. Verse 20, he says, his eyes shall see his destruction, he shall drink of the wrath of the Almighty. And that is, the Lord's going to reward the devil and the Antichrist face to face. Theirs is going to come due, and they are going to see it. And it is going to cut everything short for them. Revelation 19:20, and the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into the lake of fire burning with brimstone. So not only we get to see it, but the Lord's going to be the one doing it. It's going to come to pass. In verse 21, he says, therefore, what pleasure hath he in his house after him, when the number of his months is cut off in the midst? We have an expression, his days are numbered. And actually, they are numbered. The number's 2,300, if you want to get exact about it. I'll show you a verse. Look at, let me quote this. I'll give you this one first. Revelation 12:12 says, therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil's come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. He knows he's not got that much time. I think the devil can read. And he's probably got more things figured out than we do. But not everything. Turn to Daniel chapter 8. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but I just want to show you this verse. What is so amazing to me is that very few people, and I'm talking about Dr. Ruckman, I'm talking about Brother Donovan. Brother Donovan, and there are some others that have taught on Daniel's 70th week. For some reason, this verse somehow escapes them. And I'm looking at it, and it says what it says. For instance, let's read the verse 13 and 14. And this is what Dr. Estep figured out by reading this verse. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice? Now, that expression, daily sacrifice, is only found in the book of Daniel. It's found 5 times. And most of the time, when it's talking about the daily sacrifice, it talks about when it's being taken away. When the Antichrist stops the daily sacrifice. Because that begins the last part, or the Great Tribulation. The first part of the week, it's the daily sacrifice. So when the day this thing begins is the day the 70th week continues. The day if they talk about doing these daily sacrifices, get ready to go. Because that's what starts it. It says the vision concerning the daily sacrifice, and then it says, and the transgression of desolation. There's the idol in the temple. Now look what it says. to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot. Go to the book of Revelation, they're trodden underfoot 42 months. This is the only verse in the Bible that tells you the entire length from the daily sacrifices to the end of the 42 months of the Great Tribulation. And he says, verse 14, he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. 6.38 years, exactly what Dr. Estep used in his chart. And we can get you a copy if you don't have one. His days are numbered. And there's a certain amount of time, and I'm sure he's aware of it. You know what the issue is never the times, that's the years, or the seasons. It's the day and the hour. Now, only one time do you find where times and seasons are in the Father's power. That's early in the book of Acts. And the reason being is that God has not revealed yet that he is going to postpone that kingdom. They don't know that till, well, they really don't know it till about Acts chapter 8, 9, maybe even later than that. But the issue has always been the day of the hour. For instance, Matthew 24:36 says, but of the day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. In Matthew 25:13, he says, watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. He's talking about his advent. That's always been the issue, when. And Mark 13:32, but of the day and the hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels which are in heaven, neither the Son, but the Father. Now I think he's saying that because he's here. Obviously, he gets back up to the right hand of the Father. I'm sure he's aware of the time frame. But while he's here, he doesn't know. And you know, the reason he probably has not been, he's not savvy to it, doesn't have to be, is that he is trying to fulfill all righteousness. He is trying to do a ministry, but God the Father knows they're going to reject. And I think the Lord does too, but I don't know if he knows that they'll even reject through the book of Acts till it gets back to glory. I don't know. But 1 Thessalonians 5:1 says, but the times and seasons, brethren, you have no need that I write unto you. You and I are to know perfectly what the years are and the seasons are. But the day and the hour, that's like the day and the hour of the rapture. Nobody can know that. You know why? Different time zones and international date line. It could be a different day for you and a different hour. So you wouldn't know the day or the hour. It'd be a matter of 2 different days, actually. Does that make sense? I think I just went totally over the board there, I didn't. But his days are numbered. And he's got 2,300 days. He's done. And I don't think he even knows the day and the hour. If the Father hasn't committed anybody else to know it, I'm sure he doesn't. I think it talks about that, the good man of the house. Remember, that's somebody that's controlling the house. Doesn't mean they're good. It just they're the ones that's running the house. Huh? Controlling the goods, yeah. That sounds about right. The good man of the house. It's like the steward, but and the devil is the good man of the house. This is his house. We're still sitting in, it's church house, but we're still sitting in his house. So when the rapture comes, it's like a thief in the night. Why? He's coming into the devil's house and stealing us out of it. Now, we belong to him. We don't belong to the devil. But he still has to get into the devil's house, take us out. That's why the rapture is like a thief in the night. He comes in like a thief because this is not his house yet. So even a post-tribulation rapture, likened to a thief coming in, he's taken his wheat, he's taken his fruit, gets out, and then, the judgment falls. When he gets us out of here, the tribulation begins. And it has to do with that daily sacrifice. Everything's down. I'll tell you what, I don't see any issue with any time that's not accounted for. I think it's all there. I don't know about the calendars. I don't know why we're 2021. Technically we should be in the millennium. Okay? But there's a lot that goes into calendars. I don't know if you know it or not, but we're not just talking about going back to the day of our Lord when he was born. Calendars reach back as far back as they can go. And if they think they're going back 10,000 years and there's not 10,000 years back there, you could mess up some things. And then we have to deal with the fact that our earth is on a slant or off tilted, and we don't have 24 hours in a day. I know you've been told that, but it's not exactly 24 hours, like 4 minutes short or something like that. I can't remember how, but that can add up. That can add up over 6,000 years. So, and then there's kings that messed with it, and trying to figure out the calendar is probably one of the hardest things. I mean, you'd have to be called to that. It'd be like Bishop doing the, what's the guy's name? Usher. I think Bishop Usher, that's what it was. Usher's chronology, which is incredible. I can't imagine the study and the things that he would have, what he would have to do to put that together. But somehow God's got that accounted for. I don't understand it. All I know is that he's coming. And I don't let the calendar really bother me. I can see by the signs, I mean, the latter days, I mean, you can see it's coming. And it might be coming quicker than you think. It's like this, you know, one day you'll look up and it'll be right on top of you. And you'll know, man, you'll think, oh man, this is it. This is it. I mean, maybe Israel, you know, they say, well, we've decided to put together an altar. Yeah. So listen, they don't have to build a temple to offer sacrifice. All they have to do is set up an altar. That wouldn't take them very long if they didn't have a bunch of Muslims throwing rocks at them or shooting at them. And if they ever decide to do that, I am telling you that daily sacrifice is what kicks it off. We're out of here. Verse 22, let's read through 26. It says, Shall any teach God knowledge, seeing he judgeth those that are high? One dieth in his full strength, being wholly at ease and quiet. His breasts are full of milk, and his bones moistened with marrow. We'll get to it. And another dieth in the bitterness of his soul, and never eateth with pleasure. They shall lie down alike in the dust, and the worm shall cover them. It sounds a little bit like Ecclesiastes. But first off, verse 22, since God is omniscient, and he knows everything, I don't think you're going to teach him anything. Now, I guess he himself could learn as a man, because he had never been a man before. He learned obedience by the things which he suffered. But teaching God something, it's not going to happen. He knows everything. Judging those that are high can be kings of those who have authority on earth, or those beings that are light years above our head. It could be either or. Isaiah 24:21 is a good verse. Isaiah 24:21. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall punish the host of the high ones that are on high, and the kings of the earth upon the earth. So when he mentions the high ones, I mean, it could be those in when a high place, what I mean is a high place of authority versus a high place. Okay? So verse 22 is referring to earthly powers. Verse 23 and 24, it says, now this is the contrast between the two. One dieth in his full strength. So Job distinguishes between those who live a great life and die an easy death, and those who die in squalor and abject poverty. Let's say abject poverty. It's hopeless. You can't. It's like being in that slum in India. The chances of you getting out of there, I mean, it'd take God to get you out of there. Now, I'm not saying he can't do it, but he might leave you there. Why? Well, that's where the sinners are. That's where the people like you are. He might just leave you there to witness to them. And you might have a rough life. Both of them are put to bed with a shovel, and the worms devour them. They shall lie down alike in the dust, and the worms shall cover them. But neither circumstance proves either man was godless or evil. You understand what I'm saying? The guy that lives in, he's got everything. He's got good food, he's got good water, he's got good accommodations. He goes on vacations, he enjoys himself, he has leisure time. You know, a lot of folks in the world don't have any leisure time at all. But he's got all that, and then he just dies in his sleep. And he may have died a very, very old man, but he dies in his sleep. Or he dies at a stout age, but he still dies, but it's not, he's got hospitals with pain relievers and the best medicine. Then you got the guy that's living in squalor, that's living in poverty and living that every day, and he's suffering. He's not enjoying life at all. He's surviving. Both of them die alike. Hey, was the judgment of God on that one guy that's living in squalor? Come on now, you can't say that. Your brothers and sisters in India or in Pakistan or in some other God-forsaken place on this earth, they're just as saved as you. They can be just as blessed. They can be just as happy too. But man, their life, you wouldn't want it. You wouldn't trade them places. They'd probably trade places with you though. And what he's saying there is that just because a man goes out of this world and he don't have two nickels to rub together does not mean the judgment of God's on him, because there are millions of people that go out that have nothing and they're saved. They just weren't born to it. Verse 24. His breasts are full of milk. And all the commentators and all, change the Bible. Oh, it's how awful. Look how there's no way that could be right. Well, it's obviously figurative, he mentions there his bones are moistened with marrow. He didn't say his bones are full of marrow. But they're more, it's talking about the health of an individual. Now, turn to Isaiah 49:23. And we are about done. Isaiah 49:23. If you're going to get critical of the Bible in this way, then you might as well put the book away, because there are tons of figurative verses in the Bible. Jesus said, "I am the door." Do we have to discuss it? Huh? We shall mount up with wings with eagles. Yeah. By the way, we saw an eagle the other day coming to church coming this way. He had white tail feathers and a white head on him, and we just watched him fly around. Just thought you might want to know that. Look up. There's eagles here. Greene County. Huh? Yeah. If you think, if you want to take it literal, fly with them. Okay? Something about, well, I'd rather fly with the eagles or soar with the eagles than something with the turkeys. What is it? My mom used to say it all the time. Something about soaring with the eagles rather than something with the turkeys, but I can't. My mom quoted. I don't know where she got it. Somebody want to say something? Okay. Isaiah 49:23. And kings shall be thy nursing fathers, and their queens thy nursing mothers. They shall bow down to thee with their face toward the earth, and lick up the dust of thy feet. And thou shalt know that I am the Lord, for they shall not be ashamed that wait for me. Well, he's talking about in the millennium, the nations coming in, and they're going to nurse the nation of Israel like a woman nurses her child. I mean, it's called hands-on, and here I am, and what can I do for you? And it says kings and queens. Okay? It's figurative. They're going to be there to help take care of them. Galatians 4:26. But Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all. Now, is it literally our mother? Well, it's figurative. They always give cities usually women's names or whatever, because it's the place where it's home. It's the place where that sustains you, that keeps you, that houses you, where all your friends and family are usually. New Jerusalem's going to be the place where we all are. But it's nothing without us there, even if it is made of solid gold or transparent gold. But Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all. It's tons of figurative language in the Bible. You know when it's figurative. You know what the funny thing is? The stuff that's literal, and the Catholic Church is the worst at this, they'll make it figurative. Anything about flames and hell and things like that, most of the cults out there do away with it. And the Lord's talking literally. about a fire. That's odd, isn't it? When he starts talking about eat my flesh and drink my blood, I mean, they about freaked out on him, and they were horrified, like do I start munching on your arm now or after the cross? It's crazy. It's obviously figurative of the Passover lamb in Exodus chapter 12. And the fact of the matter is, you got to receive him. You can't just believe that he died 2,000 years ago. You have to receive him. Just like you had to receive that sacrifice. And that's how he was just making that. But people, man, I mean, he says something literal and they think it's figurative. What was that? Ezekiel, I think it says, they say to me, he doth speak parables. And he's talking about setting the south country on fire, and a fire that would never be extinguished. He's talking about the lake of fire. All right, verse 25 and 26. And this is another dying in the bitterness of his soul, and never eateth with pleasure. They shall lie down alike in the dust, and the worm shall cover them. There's something horrible about living a life of bitterness and then going to hell on top of that. It really is. It's why you want to, if you're not in on missions, you ought to get in on it. You ought to send somebody to somebody that's not as well off as you. I mean, I believe in sending missionaries to Germany and England and all that, but especially places like Africa, especially places, like South America and other places. I mean, if you can get them into the Muslim countries, even better. And there are Muslims getting saved. Because you're looking at people that really don't enjoy life. They're in the bitterness of their soul. And if they reject Christ or they don't get saved, they go to the same hell that the guy that's been living it up all his life. And it just seems like it's a double whammy, This phenomenon that we're talking about here about those that live well and those that live are just scratching their way through life. Ecclesiastes 9, I'll stop with this. Ecclesiastes 9 verse 2 to 4 says, all things come alike to all. Now this is under the sun. This is what we understand. This is not what the revelation we have now of God and of eternal life and resurrection bodies, but this is just what men know outside of this revelation. There's one event to the righteous and to the wicked, to the good and to the clean, and to the unclean, and to him that sacrifices, and to him that sacrificeth not. As is the good, so is the sinner. He that sweareth is he that feareth an oath. This is an evil among all things that are done under the sun, that there is one event unto all. Yea, also the heart of the sons of men is full of evil. So he's not saying the evil's not present there, and the thoughts of evil. But there's a difference between the thoughts and actually doing evil. You're still evil, but if you've disciplined your child, okay, sooner or later in your life, there's going to be somebody you'd like to kill. Okay? I'm just saying you're going to get mad enough at that moment during that, maybe an hour or so, or where you're seething with anger, and you know that within you there's the ability to kill. You all know what I'm talking about. You don't get mad, huh? So I can just steal your car out there in the parking lot and you wouldn't get mad? Who's got the nicest car? Raise your hand. You get angry and you think about it, but you've been disciplined enough not to do it. You know that you can't do that. Well, at least somebody knows. Somebody, they spray a whole group of people at something went on just recently where anyway, some people are raised as animals. That's the problem. And animals kill other animals. We're human beings, and we shouldn't. The one thing we should be disciplined not to do is want to go out and kill somebody else. You ever had a road rage thing, where you're mad? I mean, you are so mad, but the discipline that you have that's been instilled into you because you threw a tantrum one time and your mom and dad beat the living life out of you and stopped you from doing tantrums. Right? So you control that thing, and then you calm down and you say, man, thank God I didn't do anything because I got this 357 right here. Don't get rid of the 357. Get rid of the anger. Okay? Now, I know some people that, I've been around some people that wasn't able to control and pulled a gun. Okay? And found themselves before a judge. And what I'm saying is that, you're disciplined to control that thing. The thoughts are there because you're wicked. But you're disciplined. That's the difference between an evil man and a man that's not evil. You do understand that, right? An evil man just does what his heart wants to do. A man that is when I say good man, I'm talking about a man that is following the laws or the morals or the Word of God. He does not choose to do those things. Not that he doesn't want to at times. The only difference between a criminal and you is that you are disciplined not to do what the criminal did. It's not that you don't want to do it. It's not that you haven't seen some little pretty that you thought you might like to take. And there's a guy right now that's on the news for stealing houseplants. He's stealing every plant he can find. Well, I can tell you, my wife's she's been this close. She'll see some grass growing somewhere, some flower growing somewhere. She goes, I could sneak in there tonight and get one of those. I just take one. Am I telling on you? And you see somebody, if you saw something, it's like finding a wallet, man. You find a wallet and all of a sudden you look in there and it's packed with bills. It's just like, that's how easy it'd be, right? Well, I wouldn't go for the credit cards, they trace you. But if they got nothing but cash, you're like, hey. But the Lord would be like screaming in your ear, what are you doing? You restore that man his wallet. Okay? Now, I'm not saying you wouldn't naturally just automatically say, yep, I'm going to do this. But the thought's always, the first thing you think about is, if there was just no name in this wallet. Now, if I find, I walked out of a store one time as a Dollar General Dollar, I don't know which one it was, $5 bill laying there. Now, pick it up. There's nobody around, man. Who lost a $5 bill? Well, who do you think? Everybody. So anyway, there was nobody else around. So that's just the Lord giving me a $5 bill, But that makes sense about. We're all evil because out of the heart proceed evil thoughts. Adulteries, fornications, the whole thing. It's all, listen, if one of it's there, they're all there. It says you make up your mind before, either your parents trained you or the Lord trained you that you don't do that. That's sin, and you don't want to carry that thing out. And when you do think of things like that, it's like, Lord, forgive me. That's why folks fight in churches and tear each other up and wound each other. They're wicked, but they shouldn't be doing that. We got to get along. We got too many other enemies out there without fighting amongst ourselves. Trust me. Okay. I don't know how much of that made sense tonight, but I'm telling you, this book is getting harder and harder. I don't know who's going to quit first, you or me. I'm not going to quit, but I'm just telling you, it's something. I couldn't even begin to. I looked at verse 27 to 34, and I didn't have the strength. I literally did not have the strength. I'd probably been at it 4 or 5 hours, and I did not have the strength to go and continue studying that thing out. I read that first, like verse 27 or verse 28, and I went, there's no telling where it goes. And I've never seen a book like this. For the first book in the Bible written, it's just incredible. It's all over the place, and yet there's no supporting scripture that existed when it was written. There was nothing to look at and compare to and say, oh, he got this from Romans, or he got this from Joshua. The guy that wrote this didn't get this from anybody. He's just listening to those 3, 4 men talking, 5, and he's writing it down. And he remembers every word of it, and he's putting it down, man. It's just going in 15, 20 different directions, prophecy, and there's psychology in this thing. There's all kinds of things that are really beyond my grasp. And if like that, did anybody figure out verse 22? Not verse 22. Yeah. Did anybody look at it? Lo, yeah, 16. Lo, their good is not in their hand. The counsel of the wicked. I understand the counsel of the wicked is far from me. You know, he's not. But what's that mean? Lo, their good is not in their hand. Does anybody have any idea who he's talking about there?
He's talking about what happens to them after they die, isn't he? And the moment they go down to the grave.
In verse
13. In verse 14, they're talking to God after they've gone down to the grave. And verse 7 is talking about the wicked is where that starts. And then it goes down.
So what's the good?
The benefits happen in life, so they have nothing to do with it.
They didn't bring it with them.
God chose to let it happen, or
So why does he say the counsel of the wicked is far from me?
I don't understand the counsel of the wicked.
Oh, okay.
Beyond me.
well, it's a colon, so the second part has more emphasis than the first part. So I haven't said that. I have no idea.
Okay. I heard a lot of it, man. Just the way it's laid out. Sometimes I don't know who's talking and I don't know who it is. I don't know if it's the Lord or the Antichrist or the wicked, or because there's the he's and the thous and the they. And the matter of fact, we're going to see, well, toward the end there, I think toward the end of the chapter, where he goes from plural, the wicked, to singular, where he's talking directly about the Antichrist. And this is going on at the same time. So I could probably go through Job a second and third time and teach completely different perspective and still be right on the mark. Yeah. I mean, I hate to think of how much I've missed and how much I've neglected to give you. I can't even imagine. Yeah. It's definitely alive. But it's just amazing how Job, and Dr. Ruckman says one of the greatest, probably the greatest book of the Bible is the book of Job, because of what it deals with, and here it's the first one written. It blows my mind. We wait till we get to the science part of it, where it starts telling you things about this world that, I mean, they didn't figure these things out in the last couple hundred years. And some of the stuff they still haven't figured out. This is going to be interesting toward the end there, but it'll probably wear me out. Anyway. Any comments? Chime in anytime you want now. Use all the help I can get. All right, if there are no comments or questions,